Hello everyone, and welcome to an installment of a preview of my next scenario in my Operation Bagration Memoir 44 breakthrough campaign. Let me just run you over a couple of things that feature in this scenario. This is the battle for the town of Molodechno and everything basically leading up to it. I already had one playtest, and that was a German win, 20 medals to 12, I believe. So I need 20 medals to win. The Germans do start with 10 to start with, so they only need 10 more. So 20 medals looks more than it really is. I do have to admit that in that first scenario, I kind of forgot the collapsible boats and rafts rule. As you can see, there is no bridge here. They are able, the Russians that is, to build a pontoon bridge, but they didn't have a card for that for quite some time, at least not on that flank. So basically the units were held up here, which wasn't entirely necessary, certainly not for the infantry, because the infantry do have the collapsible boats and rafts ability. What I always do then is once that they've actually crossed, I put a minefield token with a 0 number next to them to indicate that the ability has been used. But anyway, that made a big difference. By the time I found out that, that I remembered that they actually had that ability, it was already too late, and they had been held up too long. They can also they can roll for reinforcements, and if they get them, which works similarly to the way it worked in the two previous scenarios that I've been posting about, at least one of them I've been posting about, the Minsk one. And you get to freely place them either along this side of the board or along that side of the board between the entry markers, depending on the die roll. Even rolls to the left and odd rolls to the right, or the other way around. Odd rolls to the left and even rolls to the right. What else do we have? We can also see that a lot of units start out with fewer figures than normal. That's what these minefield tokens mean. They are not minefields. They're just to remind me, for instance, when you roll medics and mechanics, that you cannot get more than the indicated number. So this assault gun unit would normally consist of 4 figures, but in this scenario it only consists of 3. And the same is true for this naval warfare or screaming Mimi unit, which only consists of 1. There are a number of objective hexes to be scored. For instance, here in Minsk, quite a few of them. You can see a supply train. It works slightly differently than normal. Once the unit is on board the train, it can't dismount. The only possibility you have is to get it off the board via the railroad bridge here and exit it, and you score a point for each of the units carried. Once you've successfully done so and just exiting the wagon is enough, that means that automatically the locomotive is enough. That means that automatically the wagon will have exited too, and then you immediately return the train to its starting position. You have one here and you have one there. One might be in the way of another, and of course there could be a unit there, it could even be an enemy unit there, and then of course you won't be able to place it as long as that's the case. Later on you could place them. Supply trucks and half tracks, they do not have the resupply ability, so basically they're just, especially the half tracks, very weak infantry. They move faster, but they can't actually attack, so also against air power that's important. Why do I mention air power? Because in this scenario I've decided to actually use the new flight plan expansion, which is optional in all the other ones. If you do, then of course the Recon 1 cards cannot be played as air power, and the actual air power cards are also removed from the deck. First time around it played nicely. I did amend the rules, the air power rules. That is, the Russians start out with 6 air power combat cards, and the Germans with only 1 to indicate the very significant air superiority that the Russians benefited from. Um, what else do we have that's worth mentioning or that's pretty important? Well, certainly all these German units marked with a battle star mean that you can't exit them off the board for victory points. All the ones that do not have a battle star can do so. That's simply for scenario balance reasons. It would be a bit too easy to exit those units because they're simply, well, in many cases, much too close to the exit hexes. So that's why I did that, and they're basically there to enable the other units to exit. Unlike one of the previous scenarios, the Germans can actually also score points by simply eliminating Russian units. Yeah, so I'm going to do a second playthrough now and see how it turns out. I hope you like this preview, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.